During the time of Moses in the Old Testament, there were three different families who were assigned to take care of the tabernacle. Gershon and his family took care of the tent material. Merari and his family took care of the structure of the tabernacle, so the poles and the footings, while Kohath's family took care of the sacred articles found within the tabernacle, like the Ark of the Covenant, for instance. Well, Kohath's grandson, Korah, began to disdain the task of having to carry the articles of the tabernacle when they had to move. You see, Gershon and his family and Merari and his family, when they took down the tabernacle in order to move from one place to another, remember the tabernacle was portable because they were wandering around in the wilderness. Well, when they took down the tent and the poles and the foundational structure, they were able to put those items in a cart that was pulled by mules, and they would be able to travel in that way. But Kohath and his family had to carry the articles of the tabernacle, like the Ark of the Covenant, the table of the showbread, the lampstand, the altars, altar of incense and the burnt offering altars. They had to carry them on poles. Furthermore, they could not touch those articles or they would die, like the Ark of the Covenant. And so they began to disdain the task of the work that they were called to do. And Korah and 250 men started grumbling and complaining against Moses and his brother Aaron. Well, in fact, really, when you think about it, they were grumbling and complaining against God because God is the one who assigned those tasks. And so a great serious ordeal happened, and you can read about it in number 16, but essentially the ground opened up and swallowed these 250 men and all of their families. However, Scripture tells us in Numbers 26 that the sons of Korah survived. Now, we don't know why. We don't know if they were too young to understand their father's disobedience, or if they didn't agree with what their father was doing. But they survived, and later we see that they actually authored 11 different psalms that we have in our Bible, one of them being Psalm 84. And that's where the song Better Is One Day comes from. It begins, "How lovely is your dwelling place, O Lord our God." Think about that. The sons of Korah, who complained against God because of the task of having to take care of the tabernacle, here they are saying, "How lovely is your dwelling place. Better is one day spent in your house than 1,000 elsewhere." And the next verse after that is probably my favorite of this chapter. They say, "I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of God than to dwell in the tents of wickedness." Who are the doorkeepers? Well, those that took care of the tabernacle. They were saying, "I would not complain against you, O God, like my father did, like our ancestors did. I would much rather be a janitor in your house, to be a doorkeeper, than to spend time in tents of wickedness, away from your presence. Better is one day in your courts. Better is one day in your house, God, than 1,000 elsewhere." That's my prayer for myself and for you. May we strive to follow God's leading in our life. Not to grumble and complain when difficult things arise, but to say, "Oh Lord, how lovely is your dwelling place. How lovely is it to be in your presence, even in the midst of trouble, even in the midst of the struggle that I'm going through, Lord. Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere." I want to be someone who takes care of your house, Lord. I want to serve you and to serve your people. rather than to dwell in tents of wickedness.